Steam being hypocritical really shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone anymore. We have seen them censor and ban games unfairly way too many times now. I mean, they force developers to make tons of changes to their games, and they don't ever implement their policies fairly. And if you're a fan of Super Seducer, there is some really bad news that we now know about 3. If you don't know the history of the franchise, it's pretty straightforward. The first game was originally on the PlayStation 4 and on Steam, but Sony ended up banning it really shortly after it was released, which isn't that shocking at all because Sony loves to throw around the ban hammer. Unfortunately, if you're a console user, Sony and Microsoft are harder on things they consider to be explicit material, but Nintendo actually picked up number 1 and number 2, which was great to hear about. Very positive situation there. And now it's time for 3 to release, but the game has unfortunately been officially banned from Steam. So Richard Laruna had made a couple of tweets about this situation. Steam have banned and removed Super Seducer 3 from the store. They will not allow it to be released in any form. Our page is gone and 61,700 wishlists are gone. Prior to this, they told me to expect either approval or feedback. It sounds like they were completely blindsided by the fact that it was outright banned and that Steam wasn't willing to work with them at all for the game. We repeatedly said we'd do whatever they needed, so he did provide multiple screenshots which I wanted to read. The first one is a message from the Steam team. It says, "Hey Rich, we have finished reviewing your latest build and we aren't going to be able to ship Super Seducer 3 on Steam. As we have mentioned previously, Steam does not ship sexually explicit images of real people, and after multiple product resubmissions and product reviews, we feel that we are at an impasse and therefore this decision is final. We do not have any additional feedback or details to share beyond what we have provided in previous conversations." Now, Steam in this email goes on to say that Steam does not ship sexually explicit images of real people, but sexually explicit is such a loosely based term that can mean anything that Valve wants it to mean. Valve's inconsistent as heck, they always have been, and it sucks because Steam's very convenient and lots of games go to Steam, but they've forced censorship on a lot of devs and they've banned a lot of games, even if very similar ones are already on the platform and they accept new ones all of the time. Steam's not using the term pornographic here, which is important to note. They're saying sexually explicit images of real people instead of, anime hentai and sex games. And Steam right here has proved their inconsistency because you would think the first Super Seducer and the second Super Seducer games wouldn't be on the platform, but the first 2 Super Seducer games are still on Steam, completely uncensored. Steam didn't end up forcing any censorship on them, and you can still actively buy them. You can go right now to the platform and purchase both of them for $12.99 each. So headed on over to the second screenshot he posted. He said, "I'm reading this late at night but wanted to send an initial message. For this latest build, I worked with a lawyer to put together what he said was appropriate given the laws you mentioned. In retrospect, I guess this was a mistake. In your previous 2 messages, you mentioned feedback or approval and not cancellation. So I am very surprised to receive this message. If we knew we had, let's say, one more shot, we would have done things differently. I do not feel like we are at any kind of impasse. I'm ready to take a butcher knife to the game and take weeks to make all kinds of edits." This is actually a really interesting situation because even if it was put onto Steam at this point, even if Valve decided to say, "We'll work with you," because there has been a lot of anger around them banning this game, I think that a lot of people still wouldn't buy it simply because he's literally saying we would censor the hell out of this game, and a lot of people don't want to support censorship now. Even though developers want their games to be on as many platforms as possible and they want as much reach as possible, I think that that would be very disheartening for a lot of consumers who would have previously purchased it. But it says, "I am sure you can imagine the expenses involved in creating the game and also the amount of people involved. The 61,000 wish lists that we have been accumulating for 2.5 years, so I won't write an essay on that. I've also expressed before and repeat again, we are sorry that we are in this situation and are not trying to push our position in any way. We did not make a game that was trying to be controversial or sexually explicit in ways that other games that have been banned have. Likewise, I am not taking any kind of stand against Steam. This game has tens of millions of YouTube and Twitch views and has been played by many of the top influencers, and I know this in of itself doesn't mean really anything related to your rules, but it at least shows that the game is attempting to be mainstream and not extreme. Maybe Steam told him you need to change very specific things about the game, and he cut corners to try and make the most minimal amount of changes to seemingly meet Steam's requirements, and Valve finally got sick of dealing with him, so they outright banned the game. I mean, he admits that he talked to a lawyer to try to figure out what he needed to change and what he didn't need to change, but we know Steam's history, and Steam might have had a problem with tons of the scenes in the full game, but it already had a fully censored mode where you couldn't see any of the sex scenes, and the other games are on the platform like I mentioned. The only thing that I could think of is that 3, included scenes that were far more explicit and way more out there than any of the others in any of the other games, but I wasn't, of course, able to buy a copy of the game, so I can't sit here and compare all 3 of the games and their scenes side by side, and that could definitely be a possibility, but I just don't know right now, and a lot of that footage still isn't up on platforms like YouTube. It seems to me like they just pulled a reason out of their terms of service to ban this game, even though if they were applying that across the board uniformly, the first 2 games wouldn't have ever been on the platform and they wouldn't still be on the platform. My theory is that they didn't want to deal with him, so they just outright banned the game after he resubmitted it one single time, and that's still not okay. He should have been given a fair chance to change the content in this game. Steam giving him a single shot isn't okay, but let's be honest, we know that Steam doesn't really care about developers. They only care about themselves. I'm going to continue on to the next screenshot. It says, "Hey Richard, we are not going to sell the game or re-review it." They only gave him one shot to change everything in this game, which is so sad to see. As a developer, I'm sure that you'd want that chance to change content in your game and to get it on a platform as big as Steam. But he also made another thread, and it says, "To be clear, Steam 1 rejected both the uncensored and censored Twitch versions. 2 never gave any specifics of what content they didn't like. 3 also blocked our demo, which was the gym level censored, and 4 said that if I got an ESRB M rating that would not affect their decision." I initially was thinking because it wasn't rated by the ESRB, maybe that's why they declined it, but they never said, hey, we won't even consider putting this game on our platform until it's rated by the ESRB, so clearly that's not a problem. Also, Super Seducer 2 isn't rated by the ESRB. Number 1 is, it's got an M, but number 2 wasn't rated, and that is still up on Steam. Continuing on, he said, "My wife and I have been working through this stress, and we never say if only we had, because they even rejected the ultra tame demo. We still have no idea and feel that it could even be political or personal. If not, why not give us a clear example of what was not okay?" I do agree. I think that they should have been very clear and very concise as to why they wouldn't accept it, and maybe he could have changed everything. It sounds like he was willing to go above and beyond for Steam to change anything in the game that they wouldn't have accepted. But let everyone know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video and found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, you can give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.